Welcome everybody to the May 5th, 2020 Select Board meeting brought to you here by Zoom. I hope everybody is healthy at home. I do have to read our script before this meeting. As a preliminary matter, I am the chair of the Select Board. Permit me to confirm that all members and persons anticipated on the agenda are present and can hear me. Members, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. So, Peter Carlson.
Peter Carlson's here.
Ed Prisby.
Here.
Doreen DeFazio.
Doreen DeFazio here.
Donna Stock.
Donna Stock here.
Thank you. Staff, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Tim McInerney.
McInerney here.
Becca Meekins.
Becca here.
Amy Perkins.
Here.
Anticipated speakers on the agenda, please respond in the affirmative. David Eisenthal.
Here.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. This open meeting of the Select Board is being conducted remotely, consistent with Governor Baker's executive order of March 12th, 2020, due to the current state of emergency in the Commonwealth due to the outbreak of the COVID-19 virus. In order to mitigate the transmission of the COVID-19 virus, we have been advised and directed by the Commonwealth to suspend public gatherings, and as such, the governor's order suspends the requirements of the open meeting law to have all meetings in a publicly accessible physical location. Further, all members of public bodies are allowed and encouraged to participate remotely. The order, which you can find posted on the town's website at www.grafton-ma.gov, allows public bodies to meet entirely remotely, so as long as reasonable public access is afforded, so that the public can follow along with the deliberations of the meeting. Ensuring public access does not ensure public participation unless such participation is required by law. This meeting will have some public comment. For this meeting of the Select Board is convening by Zoom as posted on the town's website, and it shows how the public can join in. Please note that this meeting is being recorded and that some attendees are participating by video conference. Accordingly, please be aware that other folks may be able to see you, and take care not to screen share your computer. Anything you broadcast may be captured by the recording. All supporting materials have been provided. Members of this body are available on the town's website unless otherwise noted. The public is encouraged to follow along using the posted agenda unless I note otherwise. Ground rules. We are now turning to the first item on our agenda. Before we do so, permit me to cover some ground rules for effective and clear conduct of our business and to ensure accurate meeting minutes. I will introduce each speaker on the agenda. After they conclude their remarks, we'll go down the line of members. Usually everybody's just kind of waving when they have a question, inviting each to provide any comment, question, or motions. Please hold on until your name is called. Please remember to mute your phone or computer when you are not speaking. Please remember to speak clearly and in a way that helps generate accurate minutes. For any response, please wait until the chair yields the floor to you and state your name before speaking. If members wish to engage with other members, please do so through the chair. After members have spoken, the chair will afford public comment as follows. We will use the Q&A function, but again, I will not read every single thing. I will read the things that are relevant to the conversation. Public comments during the meeting, Q&A, the chair will read them. Okay. Finally, each vote taken in this meeting will be conducted by roll call vote. All right. Sorry, we always have to get that out of the way. So meetings called to order. Announcements. I have several announcements. I want to thank everybody who participated in Grafton Cleanup Day. Almost 3 tons of trash were collected. While we did run out of bags last week, we do have some more located in the orange bin outside the municipal center if someone was not able to participate last week and still wishes to. Thank you also to Grafton Cable, who has worked really hard enabling us to televise these remote meetings on Verizon Channel 33 or Charter Channel 192. That's new. Before, everybody had to watch on their computer, but now they can watch on our cable studios. Are you registered to vote? The town's clerk office would like to remind everyone the last day to register to vote at the annual town meeting is June 10th, and the last day to register to vote in the annual local election is June 12th. You can go to www.registertovotema.com. Next, we have a huge thank you to the Friends of the Grafton Elders for providing the funds necessary for the Grafton Senior Center to make another gift bag delivery to seniors in housing. Because of Foggy's generosity, the Senior Center was able to deliver gift bags to those seniors in housing twice since the COVID-19 pandemic began. The first round of gift bags delivered contained a certificate to Bushel and Peck for a sandwich delivered, informational literature, and a table talk pie. The second round deliveries consisted of a gift certificate for a small cheese pizza with one topping delivered from Pepperoni Express, a table talk pie, and a large print word search book. Thank you also to Bushel and Peck, Pepperoni Express, and Table Talk Pies for supporting this project. There were approximately 200 bags distributed to housing and other seniors in town. The Senior Center does have face masks available for seniors in need of them. All they have to do is contact the Senior Center at 508-839-9242 to make arrangements to receive them. The masks were provided by the Crazy Quilters of the Baptist Church of Grafton, members of Ellen Gogan's book club, and Lori Holden Gerard. So thank you to everybody there. Next on the agenda are public comments. Peter.
Madam Chair, I would just like to ask that the board would take a moment of silence in honor of the passing of Rick Schultz, who was a longtime employee for the Grafton Public Access Cable TV. He was the person for many years behind recording our meetings. Just would like for us to honor him tonight with just a moment of silence. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Yep, public comment is next, Peter. Is that? Do you have a letter to read?
For public comment, I believe I do. Thank you. Bear with me here, just pulling it up. Yes, Madam Chair, I've got a public comment submitted by Mark Johnson, members of the Select Board and Office of the Town Administrator. I'm writing to express my concern and disappointment with the recent conduct of a sitting member of the Select Board, Mr. Ed Prisby. Please understand this is not a personal attack in any way. I'm addressing his behavior and conduct. It is blatantly obvious that Mr. Prisby is promoting a high toxic environment within our local government. I am sure all of you are aware that he has been disseminating wild conspiracy accusations, i.e. Warrantgate and Lettergate, on his personal blog page, Planet Grafton. On this page, he's accusing other Select Board members and the Town Administrator's Office of improprieties, accompanied with a varying level of insults directed towards each. Please also be aware of his willingness to do the same while participating in various Facebook discussion groups. Since his postings are from his account named Select Board member Ed Prisby and not his personal account, one can only assume that these statements are distributed as part of his official capacity with the town, although I am certain he will argue otherwise. Recently, I had an interesting interaction with Mr. Prisby on Facebook group named 2020 Override Discussion Group Grafton, Mass, where Edward Prisby shared his position as founding member, along with many members of the School Committee, Finance Committee, and Planning Board. The About tab describes this page as discussion group about the possibility of an override this year in Grafton, Mass. But as of late, the discussion group has only turned into another platform to promote Mr. Prisby's town conspiracies and insults. Please allow me to directly quote Mr. Prisby. Open quote. Go try Donna or Jen or one of the other know-nothings on the board with that crap. Close quotes. Immediately following this insult directed at all of his colleagues, the conversation only got worse. Mr. Prisby began actually suggesting that he may come over my home to collect a check because I cost his family money by not supporting a new library years ago. Again, allow me to quote Mr. Prisby's very words. Please be aware that the direct quote contains profanity. Way I see it, you owe me money for not keeping you on your capital, because you guys could have replaced the library back in 1996 for $1 million, but you didn't decide to, which cost my family more in taxes. You cost me more money. Can I come to your house for a check? In fact, let's go down the line of deferred capital expenses that your generation benefited from that my generation is now paying for. Are you guys reimbursing me for that? I'm not going to repeat that word. I really want to know. As his participation in the discussion continued to deteriorate, I urged Mr. Prisby to follow his own advice from an article he published on his Planet Grafton blog. I provided the following quote from that article. Lessons learned. If you don't like someone's opinion or the fact that they're participating, don't attack them personally. Don't character assassinate. Don't degenerate how they participate or the forum they use. Address their arguments on their merits. Treat people, especially new people, with some respect. Why alienate new blood and dampen enthusiasm? If people are inclined to discuss local issue, organize and vote. These are exceptional people who should be celebrated. If your first inclination is to bash them, you aren't part of the problem, you are the problem. Credit Planet Grafton article endgame. And how did he receive his very own words? He shifted gears and goes with the schoolyard argument of, you started it first, Mr. Prisby states. Remember suggesting that I am pro-override because I'm a lawyer and can afford it without knowing that actually my wife is laid off due to COVID. This was referring to a comment that I sent in live during the April 7th Select Board meeting. But what Mr. Prisby offers above is a complete fabrication on his part. I never said a word about him being pro-override or his occupation or about his ability to afford anything. I provided him with an exact quote of the comment. The comment questioned his opinion and how it applies to taxpayers plurally. His follow-up comment to this not only doubled down on his original fabrication, but taking it further with some other cryptic fictional accusation of don't support the override or I'll make your financial situation public. Does this sound normal? Is this how a select board member should represent Grafton? Honestly, bizarre, disturbing seems to be the only descriptions that fit it. I would urge the select board to ask Mr. Prisby to follow his own advice, refrain from current behavior, and place more effort in representing the select board in a professional manner that the position deserves. If he cannot provide that level of professionalism, he should reread his last sentence of his Endgame article and do the right thing. Respectfully, Mark Johnson. P.S. P.S. Facebook allows the message author, Mr. Prisby, or the group administrator, sitting finance committee member, the ability to alter or delete posts or entire conversations. Should these direct quotes disappear, I can provide screenshots to support my quotes. Thank you.
All right, next item on the agenda is the coronavirus update. Tim?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just quickly on this, today we had one case. We did go 2 days without a report of a new case, so we have a total of 57 here in Grafton. We all know that the governor had a new rule relative to wearing masks in public that start tomorrow. We have put a couple videos on the Facebook page and on the website relative to the making of masks with tips to make those masks at home. And as you mentioned during the opening, Barbara and the Senior Center is working to make masks available to seniors. Under COVID, that's all I really have to update with the board. I did send an email to the board on some other matters relative to COVID, but nothing that I want to cover with the board at this point with that.
Okay, next we have vote to approve issuance of the $17 million $15,000 general obligation bond anticipation notes. So Amy is here to talk about that. And Tim, I don't know if you wanted to start or if Amy was going to start.
Yeah, Amy and David, did a lot of
David.
background work on the bond. Did I mute myself? I'm sorry. No. They did a lot of background work on this borrowing. I think it's important to note that the 17 million, I will clarify what that's made up of. We had existing short-term notes for the library of about 8 million. And then we voted in the fall to add another million for DPW. And then we have obviously the balance for what will be reimbursed over time for the library project through the state, through the grant. So we borrowed the full amount for a short-term 1-year note. So that's how it broke down. We made a conscious decision, and I reported on this at least 3 meetings before going out to bid for these notes. The bond market was crazy. We did have to, pay these notes off by May 15th, thereabouts. So we had a decision to make with the backdrop of COVID-19 relative to, do we do a short-term borrowing or a long-term borrowing? And when we created the budget, we had figured way back when in December, we would do a long-term borrowing for these notes rolling forward. And we budgeted accordingly, which obviously the taxpayer bears that burden with the debt exclusion. So we carried about 550,000 for debt service, but with this short-term borrowing and the interest rate that you all got in the documentation ahead of the meeting, we're able to have an interest rate for 1 year of, I think, 250,000 or 225,000 in interest costs for that borrowing for the year for the full 17, which is a lot of money. But again, it's half of what we were. There's no impact to the general fund relative to this because it is debt excluded, so it just really saves the taxpayer money. And we were conscious of that going in. We try to hedge against the uncertainty of the market relative to a long-term borrowing and the COVID-19 outbreak and the significant job loss that the Commonwealth as well as the country has faced. So all those things factored in, we decided to opt for short-term borrowing, and we were able to secure a sub 0.9% interest rate in doing so. So there's a lot of motions the board needs to go through, but that's the parameters in which we got to where we're at today. So I appreciate the finance team who worked on both the S&P call and then putting together the disclosure documents that went out ultimately to bond counsel and then to the market for the sale of these bonds. We will be doing this again in May. Hopefully the market will stabilize and we'll still enjoy a low interest rate, but certainly not as low as 0.86% is what the total percentage is for this borrowing. So I don't know if David or if Amy want to add anything to that. I try to just cover it briefly.
David or Amy, do you have anything to add? Or do any board members have any questions they want to ask?
Just one more note, just relative to we're trying to time the payments of the state aid for the grant to pay off a secondary short term. So if you will, we have 16 million for the library project. We know 8 is our responsibility. These are rough percentages in terms of the split, but that'll be a long-term finance. When we know that the state aid will kick in thirds over 3 fiscal years, we'll pay off those additional bands that we would do next May, the following May, and the following May. And we'll use those state aid distributions to pay off those bond anticipation notes at those times.
David, I see you unmuted yourself. Do you have anything to add?
Well, I just wanted to make myself, Madam Chair, I wanted to make myself available for questions. And I think certainly Tim described a municipal bond market that has been very unstable of late. It's a little more stable now, but I think that the town made the good conservative call to roll notes for a year, and the town, the town is a strong credit, and I think the S&P affirmation of the AA+ Long-term rating certainly shows that. S&P is certainly watching to see what happens even with the strong municipal credits as the COVID crisis continues. But I think that this was a good result for the town. With an under 0.9% cost, it's a good result for the town.
Peter, did you have a question?
Oh, man.
Oh, okay, sorry, thought you unmuted.
I was
Any,
liking what he said.
okay. Any board members or have any further questions or, we do have 5 motions that are very specific. I know that Amy and David, everybody made sure that they are done correctly. And then we do need to sign this, right, Amy, by tomorrow or during tomorrow. So do you want to talk about that just a little bit?
I think timeframes were sent out. I just don't know what worked best for everyone, but I'll be there all day, 8:30 to 4:30. I just didn't know if anybody needed a later time frame.
Thank you. So if any, Donna, go ahead.
Require all 5 members or just majority?
Just majority.
I believe there's something specific for Peter though as clerk, correct? So
Sure.
Peter must be, he's on the hook for
Yes.
being at least one of those. Okay. It shouldn't be a problem.
No, Madam Chair, I just want to let everyone know, Joanne Duncan reached out to me today and indicated that there is one thing or several things I have to be on the signature for as clerk. I've got that all set and taken care of, ready to go after tonight's meeting.
Great. Thank you, Peter. All right. So if there are no further questions for about this, I will take the first motion.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I move the board vote to approve the sale of $17,015,000 1.5% general obligation bond application notes, the notes of the town dated May 14, 2020, and payable May 14, 2021 to TD Securities USA LLC at par and accrued interest, if any, plus a premium of $102,770.60.
I'm sorry, just real quick, Peter, you said application note instead of anticipation note. If
I'm
you just
sorry.
want,
I will
that's
reread.
okay. I just want, again, because they're very specific, I just want to make sure.
My bad. I move the board vote to approve the sale of $17,015,000 1.5% general obligation bond anticipation notes, the notes of the town dated May 14, 2020 and payable May 14, 2021 to TD Securities USA LLC at par and accrued interest, if any, plus a premium of $102,770.60.
Second.
Thank you. I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none by roll call.
Carlson, aye.
Stock
Yeah.
eye.
DeFazio, aye.
Thomas, aye. A motion is carried. Second motion, please.
Madam Chair, I move the board vote that in connection with the marketing and sale of the notes, the preparation and distribution of a notice of sale and preliminary official statement dated April 22nd, 2020, and a final official statement dated April 29, 2020, each in such form as may be approved by the town treasurer, be and hereby are ratified, confirmed, approved, and adopted.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none by roll call.
Carlson, aye.
Stock eye.
DeFazio, aye.
Frisbee, aye.
Thomas, aye. Motion is carried. Next motion.
Madam Chair, I move the board vote that the town treasurer and the select board be and hereby are authorized to execute and deliver a significant events disclosure undertaking in compliance with SEC Rule 15C2-12 in such form as may be approved by bond counsel to the town, which undertaking shall be incorporated by reference in the notes for the benefit of the holders of the notes from time to time.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none by roll call.
Carlson, aye.
Frisbee, aye.
Stock eye.
DeFazio, aye.
Thomas, aye. Motion is carried. Next motion.
Madam Chair, I
Yes.
move the board vote that we authorize the direct the town treasurer to establish post-insurance federal tax compliance procedures and continuing disclosure procedures in such forms as the town treasurer and bond counsel deem sufficient, or if such procedures are currently in place, to review and update said procedures in order to monitor and maintain the tax-exempt status of the notes and to comply with relevant securities laws.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none by roll call.
Carlson, I.
Stock eye.
Fazio, I.
Frisbee, aye.
Thomas, I. Motion carries. Last one.
Madam Chair, I move the board vote that each member of the select board, the town clerk, and the town treasurer be and hereby are authorized to take any and all such actions and execute and deliver such certificates, receipts, or other documents as may be determined by them or any of them to be necessary or convenient to carry into effect the provisions of the foregoing votes.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none by roll call.
Carlson, I.
Stock eye.
Frisbee, aye.
Fazio, I.
Thomas, I. Motion has carried. All right. Thank you, everybody. So we will, if you guys can reach out to Amy and set up an appointment and get there to sign, she needs to show us exactly where to sign and make sure we do it correctly. I appreciate it. Thank you for all your hard work. That's terrific news, such a low interest rate. Thank you for everybody's hard work on that. I know it's not exciting, but this is the regular work of the select board that keeps moving. So, all right. Thank you, David and Amy. I think, you're welcome to stay, but you're also welcome to go.
And if I can, just relative to the timing, we want to be able to FedEx these, I think, on Thursday morning or Wednesday afternoon. So it's imperative that we get them signed. I know you've already covered that, but I just want to say it again to emphasize the point.
Madam Chair, thank you very much. And please, I'm sure that if you have any questions, you can let Tim, Becca, or Amy know, and I'm sure they'll reach out to me.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you for being here. All right. Thanks, Amy.
Thank you.
All right. Next on the agenda, we have no appointments today. So we go on to new business. Vote to support the recommended 2021 to 2025 TIP project listing. Tim, do you just want to give this seems kind of a funny thing to do. So can you just give a little?
Yeah, just
background?
as a way of background, we applied back in 2014 for transportation improvement program through federal funds through the CMRPC and the CMMPO. But anyways, in 2014, we did a project initiation and a project need form to Mass DOT requesting this project, which is from the Sutton line to 122 Providence Road, be improved because it's riddled with deficiencies. It's a 2.05 mile project from the border into down towards Cumberland Farms. We've been under contract with VHB for over 6 years to design, and we've held several outreach meetings with the community and the abutters along there. We have hired an appraiser and a secondary appraiser who appraises the appraiser's work. We've all been through that. You signed those contracts. And we need those portions of land. Some are small, some are large, some are temporary, some are permanent. They're all to lay out the right of way for the town, for its property along that corridor, so we can do the work that's consistent with construction methods today. So in 14, the estimated construction when we did our needs initiation form was $4.5 million. Today, that estimate is over $10 million. So that this, in terms of looking at the time it takes to get a project approved and get on the tip, the costs grow exponentially. So the letter to the CMMPO basically just, it shows that there's support. The fact that you've allocated $700,000 for engineering costs and other related costs relative to the appraisal process shows you are committed to do the project. So we just want to say to the state, to the federal government, to DOT, that the deadline for bidding of February 2021, which is under a year away, we are able to meet that schedule. We can meet that deadline, but we don't want to slip. So this is just an added step, if you will, to let that group know that the board is in support of it, they're aware of it, they understand it, they want to continue moving it forward. The 10 million's covered by a federal program of money for infrastructure improvements, but our cost is the design, and we're obviously doing that as we move forward. So we had to have community outreach meetings at different points of the design at 10%, 25, 50, and we're probably closer to 85 or 90%. The right of way that's been laid out in this project is with DOT for the past month, and once they approve it, it'll go through a process which will allow us to put it out to bid in February 2021, and then the contract will be awarded. The board would be asked to sign that contract in the fall, and hopefully we get started in the fall or spring of 22.
Anybody have any questions on this? Okay, if not, I'll take a motion.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I move the board vote to authorize the chair to sign a letter addressed to the Central Massachusetts Metropolitan Planning Organization indicating the board's support for the recommended 2021-2025 TIP project listing.
Second.
All right, I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none by roll call.
Carlson, I.
Stock eye.
Fazio, I.
Frisbee, aye.
Thomas, I. Motion is carried. Thank you. Next, I do not see the representative yet from the railroad. So,
Yeah, I texted him at 7:03, so I don't know I had conversations with him as late as today, so I can cover this, or unless you want to wait for it, it's fine with me.
doesn't, I mean, yes, you can cover it. And if anybody doesn't feel comfortable, we can wait. This doesn't have to happen tonight as well, right? So we can,
Yeah, I think the grant is due in July. Just by way of background, the board initially signed a letter of support for this thing called the CRISI grant. I don't know what the acronym stands for, but it's a federal program that will allow for additional siding that runs parallel to Westboro Road and the tracks for CSX and MBTA, which would allow trains to be dropped more efficiently for the rail yard. So you supported it back in October. They did not get funded. They want to submit another letter from the board to be able to get funding in the July round of the application for the grant. But nothing's changed in terms of the request. They just want to renew the letter of support from the board for their packet.
okay. Does anybody do you guys feel comfortable moving forward, or would you like to wait? What's your, Peter?
Madam Chair, I'm comfortable with waiting on this and have the representative from Grafton Upland Railroad come and maybe just talk about this one more time. I know it's been several months since we've brought this up, but if it's not due until July, I would like to table this for next meeting and have him present.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Doreen.
I would like to table the discussion as well, just to confirm with him that it is that we're reapplying for the same application, and just confirm with him if anything's changed. If there's no immediate deadline on this, there's no harm in waiting.
Okay, I'm fine with that if everybody's fine with that. Let's move on then for now. Vote to sign contract with Weston and Sampson for the Crosby Road landfill monitoring.
All right, for people to understand the location of this, there was a town landfill on Crosby between really Millbury and Crosby, and it's an odd setup, but I'm hoping Becca has the map of the area just so people can have some context. But I'll tell you that Weston and Sampson has been performing this monitoring since 2013. The regulations have changed quite a bit in terms of the reportable amounts that have to be reported to the DEP. So the landfill has to be, under state regulations, monitored, and there's testing wells out there relative to that. I think it's a total agreement for $63,000. That's $21,000 a year. We budgeted for this cost every year in the sanitation budget. If you look at the sanitation line, there's a a landfill monitoring line item that holds $22,000 or $23,000 every year. So we need to do it. It's important to do it. Obviously, we trust Weston and Sampson. They've been with us since 2013. So we just want to ask the board to sign a contract to continue Weston and Sampson Services to provide that monitoring service.
Any questions? Donna?
Has it been 21,000 in previous years, Bill? I mean, Tim?
No, it's gone up. Becca, I don't know if you have that number, just because the things they're testing for, parts per million, have increased, so they have more monitoring and then more pieces that they need to test in terms of the levels in the soil. So if Becca's on here, she can tell you what the number was, say, for example, for 20.
Yeah, so previously, the cost to monitor this landfill was $17,000 a year. This year is, 21 is the first year that it's gone up as a result of the change in the testing requirements. Weston and Sampson has always provided us with this service. And if the chair would like, I'm happy to share just a map of the location if the board would like to see that.
Sure, thank you.
I don't know if you can get to aerial on that or not, but they can't orientate themselves, they'll figure it out pretty easy. So that's it at the right. If you can't get an elevated satellite view, Becca, I don't know, what is it? I think it's under 4 acres. And we did have discussions about solar on this site, but it's not suitable just yet, but it might be in time for solar.
Thank you. Does anybody have a question?
Madam Chair, there's a question in the question and answer section.
Oh. We have a question from Rick Elaine. With that type of increase, wouldn't you go get competitive bids? Did we go to bid this out or no?
No, just because we obviously we trust Weston and Sampson. They know the history of the site. They installed the monitoring wells. To have someone come in midway through, I think we'll have a greater cost exposure if we were to do that.
Okay. All right, Peter.
Madam Chair, I move the board vote to authorize the chair to sign the letter of agreement with Weston and Sampson for landfill environmental monitoring activities conducted at the Crosby Road landfill for the 3-year period of FY21 through FY23 in the amount of $63,000.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, by roll call.
Carlson, aye.
Okay.
Fazio, aye.
Thomas, aye. The motion is carried. Thank you. Next, we have select board reports. Are there any members of the select board that wish to report? Mr. Carlson.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to let you know that the Fire Study Committee was able to conduct a meeting yesterday, finalizing its final report for the Select Board to adopt and approve. Made a lot of progress. That should be forthcoming in the short term in the future. But I just wanted to make you aware of that we'll be finishing up with that hopefully in the next few weeks.
Peter, you were involved on Sunday night. Did you want to report on that?
Yeah, Madam Chair, I was asked to present to a forum, people who were asking about the proposed override. I did just a brief segment on the public safety component of what the override would accommodate. Just outlined a couple of key factors in which that if the override were to pass, is to pass in the next coming weeks, that monies would be applied to support full-time employees on within the public safety, especially the fire department. That was about it.
Donna?
Was this a PowerPoint presentation or just a discussion?
It was a bit of both. I had some slides that just had some data on it, some key points, and just kind of walked people through just the situation. That's it.
Can you share that with the rest of the board?
Yeah, I don't see why not.
And I'm just curious, did you speak as a board?
Madam Chair, when I speak in the public, even though I am a select board member, I was very clear that I speak on behalf of myself, in that the opinions that I share are that of me as Peter Carlson, even though I sat on the select board and the fire study committee. Thank you.
I just had a quick question, Peter. Heard a little bit about it, and the number that the committee is putting forth is $10 a month. As that's what the override is gonna cost people. Can you tell us what people get for that $10 a month? Because that number seems off to me.
Yeah, Madam Chair, I didn't run that part of the presentation. Again, I just focused on one part on the public safety. If people are interested, there is one again tomorrow. They'll be going through the same thing again. I would ask the questions of the people doing the presentation about what that number represents. I don't want to misrepresent someone's interpretation.
Okay. Any other reports? Oh, Donna?
Yeah, I'm just, and maybe the answer, my question will be answered when I see that PowerPoint, Peter, but did you also talk about what the alternative was, or what we had originally proposed for the fire chief and personnel hiring before we even talked about the override?
No, ma'am, I did not.
I think that's an important component.
Madam Chair.
Well, then you can go to it
members
next
of the
time.
board, excuse me, to the members of the board, I did this personally. This doesn't really impact or affect the board anyway. And the meeting was open to the public. Whereas what we plan to do and what we didn't plan to do, again, that's something we can discuss here and come up with that policy at some point in time. These were my opinions and my words and how I envision them. And I was explaining that to a bunch of concerned voters at the time. And although it has things to do with town business, again, it was representing my opinion and that of others that I shared with concerned citizens, and that's about it. If you're interested, again, I would attend tomorrow's meeting at 7 p.m. It's posted on the East Grafton Facebook page.
Any other reports of select board members? Doreen?
Yeah, Madam Chair, just two quick things, one update, and then I just have one question. So EDC is going to be meeting next Monday night at 5 p.m. and via Zoom. And so I'll be able to update the board next week on that. And one of the discussion items we'll be having is how our committee can help support local businesses during this time. So I just wanted to let people know, especially business owners in the community who might want to tune in, or certainly feel free to email me or reach out if you have any creative ideas or, personal ways that our committee could help support the businesses in town. I know that'll be a big part of the discussion. And then my question through you, Madam Chair, is to Mr. Prisby. I'm just curious about the Sustainability Commission or Sustainability Committee. And again, I completely understand that through this COVID, things have been difficult as far as reporting out and certainly getting together. I think the last update you gave was that the committee was working on benchmarking, and just in lieu of budget discussions and override, the more information, the better. So I just wanted to know if there were any updates coming from the Sustainability Commission, or what the plan was with that committee, if any. Thank you.
So thank you for asking. I really wanted to have something for you guys by tonight, because obviously with the position that we're in financially, especially the benchmarking report would be really helpful. So I've got a draft that I'm working on. And frankly, with the last couple of weeks, I just haven't been able to finish it. And that's on me. So obviously I spent too much time arguing with Mark Johnson. That time could have been better spent working on the Sustainability Commission report. So I apologize for that. I do want to have it to us. I'm always guilty of setting unreasonable expectations for myself. So if I say 2 weeks, I want to get something done that I can present to the committee that they can then publish. The next part's harder. The next part was going to be interviews with staff, and I'm not, given everything that's going on, I just don't think it's appropriate right now. But I'll talk to the committee about it the next time that we meet via Zoom, probably, to go over the benchmarking report.
Just to clarify, do you want to be on our agenda in 2 weeks, or you're?
No,
gonna be-
I want to get before, well, don't put me on the agenda, yes. I mean, the answer to that is yes. I want to get before them with a decent Zoom meeting between now and 10 days from now, so I have time to get on your agenda for 2 weeks from now, if that makes any sense. I need to
Okay.
talk to them first with the draft. You know what I mean?
Okay, so you'll let me know.
Yes, yep.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other select board reports? TA report.
Yes, Madam Chair, thank you. Just a couple quick things. For Memorial Day, which is coming up, the parade, obviously, with the guidance from the Secretary of Veteran Services to not hold events during this outbreak. We will not, but we are working with cable to shoot some videos expressing gratitude for the veterans in their service. So we will work on that to virtually celebrate, if you will, Memorial Day. So Justin Souza, our veterans agent, is working on a plan and touching base with all veterans groups in town to videotape, allowing for social distancing and keeping people safe at the same time. But we do want to have some type of ceremony. It'll just be virtual. It will not be held due to the guidance from the Veteran Services Secretary. So that's one thing. The other is virtual classes at the senior center. The senior center has been great in terms of just doing outreach to the seniors in the community, doing robocalls, doing physical calls, doing routines, taping routines, fall prevention classes, and exercise classes, just to get out on video for local cable and for the web and Facebook, so we can have those folks get some semblance of the new normal, if you will, just to reconnect them. So, the senior center staff really needs to be commended and thanked for their hard work and dedication. I know the chair already mentioned that, but I just wanted to restate it, because without them doing that work to those 5,000 people that are over 60, that's a pretty significant number that we just need to keep track of and keep them safe. So a couple of work items that we've been working on. If you can believe it, the lease for the library at the church is going to expire in August, because we thought we would actually be in a building, but because we've had soil problems, we've had delay for COVID-19, we've had issues, we will not make that. So we have negotiated with St. Andrews a extension with the same terms, which will expire August 2021. We hope to meet that. We are anticipating to join construction schedule, but we will be making a petition to the state relative to that project, because obviously we just borrowed money and we have requirements, spend down requirements from the IRS we need to comply with. So we will make a request to see if we can start work sooner than they are asking us to right now. But anyways, we will have to extend that lease through August 2021. So that'll come before you in the next 2 meetings, provided I get it back signed from the trustee. So that's one thing. Another issue is ZL Harvey. I reported on this a couple weeks back. Their contract is going to expire next year, not this year, but June 30. So I did solicit proposals from them. There's not a lot of trash vendors, recycling and trash collectors out there as big as Harvey. So we do anticipate that cost going up for the 3. I'm asking for a 3-year contract with 2 one-year extensions, so a 5-year overall, similar to what we've had in the past. but I'm just bracing the board and the community relative to the cost for trash and recycling services. For as long as I've been here, we have not paid for recycling. That's been something that, if the market was good, E.L. Harvey did very well and we got nothing. If it did very bad, E.L. Harvey did very bad, and we didn't bear any of that cost. So that's the path we chose, and for a couple of years now, it's to our benefit not to have participated in some cash initiatives for recycling. So we will no doubt have those cost increases, but we'll have the review of them. It'll be discussed with the board. We'll have Ben Harvey come in and talk to us and answer questions that the board might have. You have to remember that the toters that are curbside for recycling, those were given to the town from Harvey. So 6,600 of those, give or take, for residential units were provided. Obviously, their operations, they had to buy the trucks to pick those up, but it made their operations enhanced significantly. And we do have some free bulky pickup items still in the contract that I want to maintain, because that's a good benefit for people to have. And there's other things that E.L. Harvey does, but that is going to come due, and we're going to have to reconcile whether we continue to offer it under the program that's under, which would be optimum depending on the cost, or if we go another way. So I just want to prepare the board that will be coming forward. As for green communities, the LED street lighting program, we're 25% complete. The main point that I just want to update the board on is we are on time with this project, even in light of COVID-19. So if you notice the lights, I drive around a lot, and I think they look awesome. So that's just me. Another thing we've been working on is the charter license for the charter renewal for their cable franchise license. Bill August, I've asked him, he's the lawyer that we hired to help us negotiate the contract with Charter. He'll prepare a memo to the board before you ratify that contract. That contract's set to expire in September. So sometime in June or July, I expect to have a contract before you for ratification. And I do have a draft of that license. I'm waiting for his authorization to forward it along to the board and to decide if we can make any public comments about the terms. We probably should not until he tells us we can do so. But once I have that approval from him, I'll send it to the full board for review and comments. And again, that's the charter license renewal for the franchise fee. And that concludes my report to the board.
Okay, moving on, correspondence. Peter.
Madam Chair, I've got one correspondence to read into the record tonight. This one is from Colleen Roy. Dear Grafton Select Board, on Friday, March 27th, I received an email from the town clerk notifying me that my citizen's petition reallocation of funds originally voted for the so-called super park had been certified. On April 14th, the Select Board reviewed the first draft of the warrant provided by the town administrator. At this time, it was identified that the petition was missing one word, municipal. The petition refers to the Capital Stabilization Fund, while the full name is Municipal Capital Stabilization Fund. Because of the clerical error, and the entire article was now called into question. Rather than recommending amending the slight error on town meeting floor, the moderator instructed the petitioner to rewrite and recollect 10 signatures. The moderator recommended against amending the petition on town meeting floor, citing that all 10 original signers in attendance would be required at town meeting to confirm that they agreed to the proposed amendment. Adding the word municipal would stay true to the four corners of the original article, so I'm unclear why the original signers would be required to attend town meeting for such a minor amendment. On April 16th, I received a letter from the town administrator notifying me that it had been determined my petition needed to be modified and resubmitted. The letter did not give any detail on what needed to be modified or whether or not the resubmission required new signatures, as had been mentioned in the April 14th Select Board meeting. I emailed the moderator for further clarification and was told that only the account name would need to be changed, but he did not indicate what the correct account name would be. I then emailed the town administrator informing him that I had reached out to the moderator and explained I was seeking further clarification from the TA whether or not I should include the account number to prevent further confusion. Town administrator responded, "It depends on Ray. I'm not sure what the right answer is." To which I responded directly to the TA for the correct account number. On April 21st, the Select Board reviewed the second draft of the warrant provided by the town administrator. The petition named reallocation of funds originally voted for the so-called super park had been removed completely from the warrant. The Assistant Town Administrator stated that if the board receives a citizen's petition related to Superpark between now and May 6th, that they would add it to the warrant. However, the board did not receive a certified citizen's petition, which had been removed. When the board asked the town administrator only why the petition had been removed, the town administrator indicated it was due to the moderator calling it invalid. At no time during the April 14th select board meeting did the moderator indicate the petition should be removed from the warrant. On April 22nd, I received an email from the moderator notifying me I would no longer need to collect signatures. I responded with a new draft for my petition for approval and asked if he had authorized for my original petition to be removed from the warrant. He had not. The moderator is now instructing me to change my original petition with the proper wording and would approve it, contradicting the previous information, citing that taking this action would require the original signers to be present at town meeting. Based on all these actions, I feel as though my petition have been specifically targeted and I have been given misleading information on how to proceed. I would also like to address the legalities of removing my petition from the warrant. Pursuant to Mass General Laws, Chapter 39, Section 10, the selectmen shall insert the warrant for the annual meeting, all subjects, the insertion of which shall be requested of them in writing by 10 or more registered voters of the town. Removing my petition violates this law. Furthermore, town meeting time states no action at town meeting is valid unless the subject matter is contained in the warrant. This requirement does not mean that the warrant must contain verbatim the language of the votes to be taken, but the warrant must contain sufficient description of what is proposed so as to constitute an adequate warning to all inhabitants of the town. Again, begging the question, why was it removed in the first place for missing one word? I'm requesting this matter be put on the next select board agenda to discuss what has transpired and to include this letter in the select board meeting packet as an agenda item. Thank you, Colleen Roy. Madam Chair, that's all I have for correspondence.
Okay, first item of discussion, review draft annual and special town meeting warrant. Becca, did you want to take us through it? Or Tim?
Either one. Becca, we'll probably just do this in tandem. We'll just go over some brief overview pieces and then dig into the detail. We will be asking the board to sign this at the next meeting on the 12th, as the warrant closes tomorrow at 4:30. You could sign it later, but given the date of town meeting, at least the anticipated date of town meeting, our goal is for next week. So we had some, the order of these articles, since even though the articles can be submitted by petitioners or by the town administrator, the order of them is solely with the select board. So bear that in mind as we go through these. If reordering, which I think Becca's done a great job of putting them in order, but if there's some last minute changes that the board wants to make, let's coalesce around that and make those changes as we go. So a few changes in the latest version. Becca, you'll have to tell me when you actually sent it out, but the zone change for 27 Upton Street for where the Grafton DPW garage is now. You all know we did an extensive study with Horsley Whitney to allow for mixed use zoning. All the survey work and the outreach work had really a significant number supporting a mixed use, which has commercial, retail, and some housing, which makes sense as a gateway project in my mind, gateway to the common anyways, not necessarily the community. The other biggest number in terms of survey and what people wanted to see was recreation. And all that costs money, and it's a good concept, but previous boards did, as we moved through this, the direction from those boards were to make it a viable economic centerpiece gateway into the common. So while that was the goal and the results bear that out, I just wanted to cover that there was a competing interest, even though the mixed use component was heavily supported more, but the next highest one was a recreational use. We know we have contamination on the site. We don't know to what extent, and we're trying to evaluate what our process will be to either mitigate or disclose and sell as is. We're still viewing that, but the zone change is what's important, because it's only, I think it's R40 now, it's residential only, so that would really hamper the use, and you really wouldn't want to put housing on that site, in my mind anyways, because obviously the industrial uses and probably not the best yield the mission when we hired Horse and Whitney, and the charge from the board was to find the highest and best use. And just like Pine Street, to find that double bottom line, if you will, the value for the sale, and then what is the long-term tax revenue impact if you were to sell it at its highest and best use. So that was kind of the goal going through. We did send a memo to the planning board asking them to look at this, to move it forward, to have a public hearing on it. Knowing that town meeting was pushed back, we felt we had enough time to have the planning board look at it and have hearings on it. And so that's where we stand with that piece. Horse and Whitney was available and would be available even for next week if the board wanted to talk through their analytics that they've done on determining that a mixed use is the highest and best use for the parcel. So if the board wanted to talk to Horse and Whitney, or even Chris McGoldrick, our new planner, he could be available as well. But that's one change. Some petitioned articles that came through today that have been duly certified. One was to convert or to convey 25 Worcester Street to the Affordable Housing Trust for an over 55. I believe I might have a typo here. I think it had an and or if it was affordable or 55 plus housing. So that came through. High Point Drive, which is off of Adams Road, the petitioners asked for that street to be accepted. As of right now, they did not have the requisite signatures in place from certified voters. So we did reach out to them today to tell them that if they need to, update their paperwork by tomorrow at 4. So if that happens, that would be on the warrant. Obviously, you would have to have a hearing to lay out the road, and you would have to do that obviously sometime in June. So we will keep you posted on High Point Drive and the acceptance or the request for that acceptance. And then we're still waiting on a recommendation from Conservation, which they're meeting tonight regarding 93 North Street. So they're meeting tonight, should have a recommendation tomorrow. I've conveyed my concerns on those particular pieces to the board via email. So we'll wait and see what Con comes back with. But those are the updates. Becca, do you have a copy of the warrant you want to pull up so people can follow along in terms of the placement of the articles if the board was inclined to move something around?
I can do that if the board wants. I just also wanted to make one note. There was one other citizens petition that came in with respect to recreational marijuana facilities in town. So there is a citizens petition that's seeking to increase the number of recreational marijuana facilities. If the board would like, I can. Oh, go ahead.
No, you're right. I'm reading off the report. I got all those things printed out there, but that's one I missed, so I apologize for that. I'm glad you caught that.
Would the board like to go through the articles or the placement? I'm happy to pull them up.
What does everybody feel? We've looked at it a little bit before. You guys want to go through it? I mean, Donna?
Okay with the placement, I guess. I do have a question on this, on the one that was just mentioned, the limitation on the number of retail establishments. Under section 2, the limitation, it says number of recreational marijuana retailers that shall be permitted in Grafton is limited to 20%, 50% of the number of licenses. Which is it supposed to be?
Yeah, my apologies. That's actually a typo. The 20% should be struck through. That's what it currently is. So that would be a strike through, and that would be replaced with the 50%. So we'll make that change. Thank you.
And what would 50% then do for us? Is it
It would get you to 3
4.5 or
3 licenses based on the number of package stores that are in town right now.
Tim, your audio's banned.
Yeah.
Okay, can you say that again if you can't hear me?
Yeah, so it will increase the number of allowable licenses by 1. So it would go from 2 to 3.
Thank you.
Sorry, any further questions on the warrant?
Madam Chair,
Yes.
are we missing a citizen's petition here again? I understand there are now 2 submitted from Ms. Roy regarding to the Municipal Capital Stabilization Fund transfer. I only see 1.
Is it Article 30 and 31?
Nope, Article 31 is a separate one that somebody else submitted, but there should be 2 now for Ms. Roy, and I only still see the 1.
The one did not replace the other? You believe that they both need to be on there?
Madam Chair, all I know is there was 2 certified. There was 2 warrants certified.
All right, well, you can add the second one. That's fine.
No, I'm not adding it. I just want to know what happened to it. I mean, why don't we see it?
Well, I'll tell you why you don't see it. When we had the conversation with the moderator 3 weeks ago, we thought we were, I mean, I heard you read the letter. I mean, I thought we were trying to be helpful, but apparently it wasn't taken that way. So we removed it because we thought it would be amended to meet the needs of the moderator from calling it out of order on town meeting floor. So we took that step thinking it would just happen. We should have just left it on. If there needs to be both, we can reach out to the petitioner and ask if they want to have both on or not, just like I did with Lydia today. We had Lydia's the other petitioner who wanted to use the money for other parks and playgrounds. So that, I don't know if that's Article 31 or not. But she originally wanted it on. Ray had a conversation with her and she wanted it off. Ray texted me, and then Ray clarified today, and I clarified with the petitioner today, she wanted to keep that on. So that one did come off for a while, but then she wanted it to stay on, so it stayed on. So now if we want to keep both of Colleen's on, we can do that. But I assume just out of practicality, there's one article that she wants to move forward.
With all due respect, we shouldn't be messing with citizens' petitions. It's the whole point of it, right? And we shouldn't be interfering with that. If the citizen wants to withdraw their petition, they should do it through the proper means and register it through the clerk's office, not through proxy, through town administrator or moderator before the meeting, right? I mean, I think we're kind of toting the line here a little bit, and I can understand where you're trying to be helpful, but I think going forward, I think any citizen's petition, okay, we got to leave it up to the individual citizens. That's the whole point of them. And I just feel that the interpretations and everything went on. I'm not going to judge right now what happened, but I think going forward, both should be on there. And if the petitioners want to pass over one of the articles at town meeting floor, that's their prerogative. That shouldn't be us. We shouldn't be interfering ourselves or inserting ourselves or making decisions on behalf of people, especially citizens' petitions. It's one thing if they're select board petitions, that's amongst us, but we should have it back on there, and it should never have been taken off in the first place.
Well, in all fairness to staff, when we had the meeting that was televised through Zoom, it was pretty clear to me that that was the direction that we were to go in. If I misinterpreted that, I apologize for that.
Well, Mr. McEnany, whatever the direction of the select board was, if that was what you got, then that was inappropriate.
Okay, I mean, Ray was on the call, Colleen was on the call, the board was on the call. I walked away thinking that it will be updated, and therefore we'd remove it until it got updated, and then we would update it. But I see your point. I understand it, and whatever people submit, they can certainly be on their own for their submittal.
Yeah, and if they reach out about the wordings or the account numbers and stuff, I believe town government should be giving that to citizens. That's their right. But yeah, if you would put that back on, and I shouldn't even be instructing you to put it back on. It needs to be back on there, bottom line. Thank you.
And just one point on the letter, just relative to the account number and the name of it, the sentence ended with, I asked, but I did, like within, I don't know, the next day, provide that account number and that the name of the proper account. So it made it seem like I did not respond, which I want to make that clear that we did respond.
Mr. Prisby.
Yeah, I mean, we should probably have a discussion about this as suggested by Ms. Roy at the next meeting, just so that we're all on the same page with how these work. Peter's right. There is a really important function that citizens petitions serve. It's an avenue for people who don't feel like their needs are being addressed by the select board, so they can go ahead and get 10 signatures and do this themselves. That having been said, Ms. Roy did comment in the question and answer portion if you guys want to read that.
All right, she would like it to be stay on. She would like both petitions on the warrant because each petition has different signatures. Taking the original petition off would do a disservice to the original signers. It would also require those original signers to sign and agree to have it removed, which has not happened. All I'm going to say about this is this citizens petitions, it sounds like in the future, and I'm not putting it on the agenda because this is citizens petition. It is not our role to move them forward. It has to do with the moderator. And so the moderator gave her a heads up that that would have been ruled out of order on town meeting floor. So it sounds like you guys don't want us to comment on them at all and have them go through to town meeting floor and have them be ruled out of order there, which seems ridiculous to me, but that's fine. We can put it on. It can go back on. They can both be there. It's just, there's created a problem where none exists, which is not surprising. So let's move on. Are there any other questions on the warrant?
There's a question on the Q&A section on the board.
That's not a question, that is a statement.
Are we reading those from people? I'm just curious. We've done it before, so I just want to make sure we're being consistent.
It is not a question, it is a statement. I am not reading it. Ed.
Madam Chair. Yeah, I mean, I want to make clear that, no one's trying to make this process more difficult than it needs to be, but the process is in and of itself really important because this is how people's rights in town are guaranteed. The select board doesn't have, even if it's well-meaning and well-intended, the select board doesn't have the authority to go in and start removing warrants, and neither does staff, because you could see how that authority would be abused. So this isn't someone making an issue out of something that's not an issue. This issue is specifically spelled out in the charter as to like what the authority is of this branch of government and the legislative branch of government. And if this wasn't an issue, it wouldn't be in the charter. So these are rights that are afforded people. It's important that we take them seriously to the point where even if we have to have two of the exact same petitions on the warrant and we'll deal with it at town meeting floor, that's what needs to happen. And we're going to have egg on our face explaining to people, yes, you see Article 26 here and Article 27, they're the exact same article or whatever, and we'll have to explain to people we messed up and this is our attempt to correct it. And that aside, here's this idea about where this money should go.
All right, let's move on. Any other on that? Let's get to the next item, which is budget.
So FY21, we know what the balanced budget looks like without an override. The only thing we need to really get our arms around is what it looks like with the contingent budget in the warrant articles. So 20, just to update the board, we're still on pace. The expenses will go down. It's odd because there's a lot of calls inside the fire department that respond to the Mass Pike, which we've had. There was 1.3 weeks into this thing. I think we had one call to the Mass Pike when a majority of our calls do go to the Mass Pike. So those are down. So there's cost savings in the budget, as horrible as it is, for the reason. So revenue and expenses will be in line. So we have no fear of 20 at this point. But 21, we've covered the changes we're going to make. I don't know if anybody had any questions about that. And then 21, if the override were to pass, what gets added back and what that impact is, we can have that discussion now or at the next meeting or as the hearings come about for our FinCom. I feel like we've covered this ad nauseum, so I don't know if people need more information, need something other than what we provided, but we're happy to do that.
Madam Chair?
Yeah.
So Tim, is it my understanding that the Finance Committee needs to see that contingent budget as part of its process?
Yeah, they're going to review all warrant articles, right? So yeah, they would want to see what's added back, for example. So pre-COVID, we had a number. Post-COVID, we had a reduction in revenue of about $600,000, which we shared with you guys at detail. So the schools had a little bit of that. We had 500,000, give or take, of that number. So we would look to, on the contingent budget, answering your question, we'd look to add back what the school would need to be whole for fiscal 21 and add back all the reductions that the municipal side made to balance 21. So yeah, they would look at both.
So you need to, from what the question that you asked earlier, you need us to discuss what you think our policies and what our priorities are and come to some consensus tonight.
When I was talking about coalescing around something, it was about the formulation of where the articles go. And then the other piece is, the $4 million that the tri-board voted on back in January, there was 3.2 for operations and 800 for capital. We haven't had a discussion about how to apply that 800 to capital in 21. We certainly have a laundry list of things we could do with that if we were to appropriate it. But there's been no substantive discussion because the override hasn't happened.
Mhm. Or any other restoration of budget items for the contingent budget as well, if an override were to pass. So that would be true for that part as well, correct?
Say that again, I'm sorry.
Sure. So very much like the capital, okay, where, we haven't made a decision if it were to pass. For you about just how much restoration of the budget that we think we can, the town could absorb with the contingency if the override were to pass. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, how much do you want to use in the first year?
Yeah.
Because that 600,000 was never calculated in when you set out the 4 million of that reduction in revenue. So, how do you not use $100,000 of Chapter 90 that you slashed from DPW, or did I slash from DPW, not you? The list that we went over for the 4-page presentation that Becca put together, in my mind right now, until you guys vote to pencil them out, they go back in. Because I think we coalesced around them to begin with, and then we reduced them. And now we're either gonna keep them out or put them back in if the override were to pass. That make sense?
You need that tonight?
No.
Okay.
I think we need to get an answer that we
Yeah.
want to get to town meeting and say, we're going to do this. Well, I didn't know we were going to do that. So
Okay.
Go back to that slideshow that we sent out for the presentation on the budget reductions. Simply just look at what gets restored. What gets cut would be restored if the override were to pass.
Okay.
Any other questions for Tim? Ed?
This one is for Tim. It comes from Matt off in the Q&A. I'll just read it so we just get this question out of the way. Finance Committee does not have current copies of the 2 budgets going to town meeting. It looks like they're looking for copies so that they can discuss them as a group.
Yeah, we just got the revised number, if you remember, not to poke fun at the statement, but there was wiggle room added to the number for the school department. So we've got with Dan today to get what that number is for 21 and for every year going forward. So now that we have that, we can simply put that into the contingent budget, which will have that number and basically that slideshow that I just mentioned to Peter.
Okay.
We got those today.
I think I have one. Well, I have one more question. I'm not sure if this fits under FY21 budget or not. Assuming, let me ask you this question. You can come back to it if this is part of your next thing. Assuming that perhaps we can't have town meeting and we have to go month to month, is there going to be another budget that you present to us within the coming 30 days?
No, if we go to month because we can't meet before July 1,
Yeah.
the appropriation will exist as it was July 1, 2019.
Okay, so we'll be operating off of basically
1/12.
last July's appropriation.
That appropriation has to survive.
Okay.
The 1/12 budgeting scheme. There
Okay.
are people, just not to belabor, but the Lieutenant Governor has a commission that Kevin Mizikar is on, and I have constant communication with him and Julie from Auburn, and they're talking about the logistics, because there's some things that we pay July 1 that would blow that 112 scheme out of the water, but we save money by doing it. So we're dealing with the debt service too is another big thing. It's $5 million. So we want to make sure that we can't be stuck by this 112 rule and reporting to DOR. So we're working through those things with the legislative delegation and the lieutenant governor. So we have those things in motion so we don't, hurt any of the rules around DOR.
All right. Can you just keep us updated on that?
Yeah, definitely. Yes.
Thank you.
Any further budget discussion? All right, moving to the next thing. I put this on the agenda, town meeting and election timing discussion. Just note, we do not have to make a decision tonight, but I just wanted to make sure that we had a preliminary discussion about it and that we're constantly thinking about it, because when we made the decision last time to postpone till June 20th town meeting and June 23rd, the election, the governor had thought we'd be open by now or tomorrow. So I just wanted to put it on the agenda, kind of to feel you guys out, see what you're thinking. I will say personally, I just want to make sure that everybody that wants to participate gets to participate. And if there's certain parts of our population that don't feel safe, whether they have their compromised immune systems or they're in a high risk group, we shouldn't exclude them from participation because they don't feel safe. So I just want to make sure that that people will participate, that we have people participate. Our poll workers are safe, all of that stuff. So I just wanted to, again, we don't have to make a decision tonight, but I wanted to start talking about it sooner rather than later, because I think, we're still waiting for Governor Baker to give us more guidance. But so I don't know. I just was curious on your thoughts, where everybody's head's at. Just a discussion, no decisions. Peter.
Madam Chair, yeah, I think it's great that maybe we keep the public up to date on just where this at. I think this is a good forum for people to kind of hear how our government is going to continue in operation. I do believe that, one part of our government where town meetings involved, where it requires people to be present for a legislative body, an open court town meeting, poses, I think, right at this moment, significant risks. And however, election timing, I'm not sure or what the board thinks of that if the election were to happen, that it consider maybe trying to eliminate anything that would allow people to congregate and maybe consider mail-in ballots like some other parts have done recently. So I think the town meeting part poses a more inherent risk to people, especially given the warrant articles that are that are being presented for town meeting. I have a tendency that would be heavily attended, and the risk is obviously high for all those people to be in such close proximity, especially in the auditorium. But whereas elections, I think it can be done via mail-in ballot, or you can exercise more social distancing in those situations. So I kind of feel that we don't have any authorization to go beyond June 30th with the elections at this point in time, nor do we. The town meeting component, I know we can suspend town meeting immediately if we open it. If people want to read into that, you can read it up in town meeting times. You can start it before June 30th and then suspend it and continue it whenever it's safe again to pass those articles. So that's it. That's how I feel. Those are my comments. Keep the dates as is for now, and let's see where the needle goes with the state and see what happens with the numbers and take any action when we get a little bit closer.
Donna?
I guess I hope that we're looking at alternatives as far as what we could do during town meeting. I know we have the auditorium, we could space people out seated, throughout that auditorium so you're not within 6 feet of somebody, but I guess we'd need the spillover into the gymnasium, which is what we used to do when we had large turnouts. So I'm wondering whether or not we can, find a way to do that in the gymnasium as well and see how many people we could actually get in with this social distancing. It may not be enough. I'm just wondering what it is. And then I guess my question about the mail-in ballots. Do we have the ability to do that, or is this something that the state has to also approve? In terms of just going for that, that's the only way we're going to go about our election is through a mail-in.
I think we need to check with Candy on that, but that's a good question. We can gather that
I think she
information.
said the last time, I mean, it can be done, but there was kind of deadlines in order to get it printed and out and replied back to. So
My understanding is the state has, it used to be limited when you did a mail-in ballot, you had to be legitimately out of town. And I think verify that that was the case when you were signing off on it. That requirement has been lifted. So if you want a mail-in ballot, you can get one. I guess my question is, if we're going to encourage people to do that, are we going to have enough? Do we have the capacity to take all those things in? And I think the answer to that question is yes. I think like you guys, I'm mostly concerned about town meeting. Other towns with non-representative town meeting are doing the spillover thing. They're doing the gym, they're doing an auditorium. I guess if you want to think outside the box, you could say, well, let's, if it's going to be on a Saturday and it's nice enough, we could just go do it in the football field up behind the school and have people stand far enough apart. But at some point, it just gets unwieldy. A really other outside the box thought is, if we could push someone to introduce legislation on Beacon Hill to change the form of government for towns like us to representative town government of only for a little while, have that election and then boot town meeting out a month. It's another thought, but there's really nothing but bad options. We have to pick the least bad option right now.
Doreen?
Yeah, I'm not going to repeat what everybody said. I think we're all in agreement, and I'm glad we're having this discussion tonight, even just a preliminary discussion. So the only thing I'll add is, waiting for Governor Baker's guidance, I think, is the next important next step. Just because, what does that mean for town meeting? If the guidelines are still a very slow reopen, we might not be able to even do spillover. And, obviously my first concern is the safety and well-being of our residents. But secondly, I would never want to turn people away of a town meeting and, open democracy because we can only have certain amount of people in a space. And so that's something that the board has to consider as well. And I think, Ed's right that we have to come up with, they may not be the best of options, but, try to come up with some creative ideas, maybe talk to some community members in the town surrounding us. I know I had a department head meeting this morning in Sutton, and I posed the question to the town manager there, and they don't have any warrant articles that would call for a large group. So they're less concerned about it, but I don't, I'm sure there's communities around that are also talking about putting an override on the ballot and, maybe reaching out and just seeing what other communities are thinking if there are other creative ways. But again, I think at this point, we're probably looking at a slow reopen. And I personally, I don't know if the June 20th date is going to work, even with a separate room available. I would be concerned about turning people away. And I agree with the consensus of everybody else.
Okay, I just we'd had a couple questions about holding the meeting outside, which we did discuss. Again, that's the moderator. Next meeting, when we actually talk about this, right, needs to be involved. I know he is against that, but or I remember from our last discussion, he's against that, but he can reiterate. I don't want to speak for him. He can tell us why next time, why he doesn't think that is feasible. So I saw a hand up. Donna.
Yeah, I'd also, I guess, look at the classrooms in the high school. If they're all got, the ability to video conference in there, maybe we can expand to that too. But I guess I want a clarification on the mail-in ballot. I know we have that now. Anybody can go down, you can request it, you can call and have a ballot sent to you. But I thought the mail-in option was something that where everyone was mailed something in their PO box or their mailbox and then was able to submit those. So this would be a proactive to every voter, registered voter in the town. Am I incorrect on that?
I think,
You're correct. We are encouraging people to mail ballots. There's a form that they can download. The chair mentioned it at the outset, and we're trying to put it out even in our email tags to let people know that they can download the form. Department head meeting today, we discussed how we get those. It's a double-sided form, so it's a little difficult to logistically to get it to every voter unless we just do a mass mailing like we did with the COVID-19 update. We can do the same thing. So we're talking about that. So people can make application, get it mailed to them, regardless of the date that the election's held on. It wouldn't matter. It's just what, the ballot is set based on what the board voted. So if the date changes, the date changes as long as it comes back. And we have to use, a reverse 911 system, code red, to let people know that date has changed and so forth. So there's parameters set up for that election to be done by mail. But I don't think you can just have it by mail. I think you have to have the date. And, if everybody does by mail, then everybody does by mail. But you still have to have the opportunity, at least right now, to allow them to vote at a particular precinct.
I think we need Candy to explain too, because I think there's a difference between absentee voting, which is what I think we're talking about, and a full mail-in system. So I know we just need a little bit more input. Peter?
Madam Chair, yeah, we had that input back on April 7th meeting. So I plan to go back to that video and reorientate myself with a lot of these questions were asked of Candy and of Ray at the time. So instead of having them back and having them reiterate or contradict what they said, maybe we go back and watch that meeting together, and before our next meeting, kind of be like, yeah, okay, we see what they said and we all agree that that's how we interpret it. But I'd hate to try to keep reinventing the wheel. I say we go by what they said back on the 7th. I think Candy was given, to your point, specific instructions that, yeah, at this time, we still have to hold an election day. But the encouragement of having mail-in ballots via the absentee process was something that they would accommodate going forward. So.
Yeah, and things also laws have been passed and things are changed a little bit. So the information from April 7th may have changed, statewide. So we'll get an update. There are some comments in the question. They're not questions, but about mail-in ballots. So, but we will get updates. We'll get updates, and I just wanted everybody to be thinking about it, and we'll go from there.
Just Jen, I should just plug the town clerk's website. If people comments, questions, she has a whole section on there about the process of absentee, mail-in vote, or early voting. So those three components are contained in the website. So people want to know what the clerk says about that. It's published on the clerk's website. So on the town's website, go to the clerk's page and you can read all about those things.
And just one more thing, if I can, for the people that are just watching this and wondering why we don't kick it out further, right now by state law, we have to do this by July 1st. So this is the time that we've gotten as we're sitting here today, thinking about our own election, and thinking about town meeting and wanting to talk to the town moderator. The box that we're working in is basically June, and that's it. And if the law changes and the governor kicks it out more, then that's fine. If not, we're going to have to pick the least bad solution to the problem.
Any other discussion? Minutes?
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I move the board vote to accept the meeting minutes of April 14, 2020 as presented.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Madam Chair, just real quick, just for a clarification on my part, where people are submitting questions through the Zoom Q&A section, the ones that you identify and take up, are they to be included in these meeting minutes? I'm a little unclear. Are they to be part of the public record?
I believe they are not, based on the governor's instructions. I can reread that I read at the beginning.
I'm sorry, I don't mean for you to have to do that remedial tonight, Jen. I didn't mean to put you on that spot, but I just didn't know like what the, if it, I mean, we record the meetings and stuff, but if there's, those comments where people who can't be recorded in the meetings where they can't be verbally heard, what do we do with that commentary? That's my only question. Like, how do we capture that to say, Rich Whitney addressed us about the land for sale. You know what I mean? Like those types of things.
Yeah, we are following all of the, because it's not a public hearing, we are not required to take public participation. So we're doing it, we're taking comments not comments, but questions when it pertains to what we're discussing, but it's not something that we're required to read every single comment that is made into the meeting. And
Okay, but we should be consistent about it though. Right?
if the question pertains to the agenda, I will read it.
Okay.
All right. I had a motion and a second for the meeting minutes. Any further discussion? Here, by roll call.
Carlson, aye.
Fazio, aye.
Frisbee, aye.
Thomas, aye. Motion is carried. Meeting minutes for April 21st.
Madam Chair, I move the board vote to accept the meeting minutes of April 21st, 2020 as presented.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Carlson, aye.
Frisbee, aye.
Fazio, aye.
Thomas, aye. Motion is carried.
Madam Chair, motion to adjourn.
Second.
Second.
I have a motion to adjourn. All in favor by roll call?
Carlson, aye.
Frisbee, aye.
Aye.
Buckeye.
Thomas, aye.